GCF notes. So first thing is kind of a hypothetical to help you understand. Okay, so it says you're a tax collector for the king. It's your job to collect money, collect as many taxes as you can, but you must be fair. So that's the key thing. You can only take the same amount from each village, or they will revolt. The king declares, I'm hungry. I want cheese and bread. So we look here. This is what the villages have. 3 different villages. This one has 3 cheeses, 4 cheeses, 5 cheeses. So I can only take 3 from each because this one only has 3. So this one has 4 breads, 3 breads, 2 breads, so I can only take 2 breads from each to be fair. Okay, same concept. Here's with drinks. So we have Kool-Aid and Monsters. So 4 Monster or 4 Kool-Aid, 4 Kool-Aid, 6 Kool-Aid. So I can take 4 from each to be fair. Okay, and then 3 Monsters, 4 Monsters, 3. So I can take 3 from each. Okay, last but not least, he wants some pets. So same concept, 2 unicorns, 7 unicorns, 4 unicorns. I can take 2 from each. And then they all have 1 manatee, so we can take 1 manatee. Okay, so knowing that, okay, these are all examples of greatest common factor, kind of like we talked about. This is going to benefit you with the letters. Okay, what I want you to realize is we looked at all the villages, and whichever one had the least amount is what we took. It is your greatest common factor, but that's the biggest you can take from everybody. Now, if not everybody had a manatee, so say this group did not have a manatee, we couldn't do that because that's not fair. We would take no manatees. Okay, so that's kind of how this works. Okay, so now let's look at it with actual numbers. Hold on. Okay, so number 1, now we have 3x minus 6. So I have 2 terms, and I personally always start with my smallest number. So 3 and 6, so we have to think about factors. The factors of 3 are 1 and 3. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So my greatest number I can take from both of them is 3. Okay, that's kind of the same concept as the front, except now with numbers. Okay, and then with letters, this one has an X and this one doesn't. So I can't take an X away because they both don't have an X. I can't take an X from something that doesn't have an X. So 3 is my GCF. So factors is what multiplies to give us that. To find my factors, I have to divide. So 3x minus 6, I have to divide both terms by my GCF. So that leaves me, what's left over goes back in the parentheses. So x, and then negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So here's my factors. So same concept here, except there is a way to find your GCF in the calculator for the numbers. So you could type GCF, and then you could type your 2 numbers. Oop, 25. And just separate them with a comma. If one of them is negative, just leave them positive. And my GCF number here is 5. Now, it will not show me my letters. I have to be able to identify that. So kind of like the front, x squared is x twice, and then y. Here I just have xy. So I can take 1x from both of them. And I can take 1y from both of them. So my GCF is 5xy, and we divide all of our terms by our GCF. So 5xy, 5xy. And my leftovers, what I get when I divide it out, goes in the parentheses. So 25 divided by 5 is 5. 2, remember when we divide, we subtract exponents. So if there's no exponent, it's a 1. 2 minus 1 is 1, so I have x to the first power. And then 1 minus 1 is 0, so the y's cancel. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. So those go away. And there's my answer. Okay. Look at number 3. Again, we could use our calculator, but I also like to start with my smallest number. Does 3 go into 6 and 9? It is a factor of 6 and 9, so 3 is my GCF. Okay, here I have xy, here I have x squared, and here I just have x. Well, they don't all have a y, so I cannot take a y out. but I could take 1x from each of them. So my GCF here is 3x. And again, we have to divide by our GCF. So 3x, 3x, 3x. Well, 3's cancel. 1 minus 1 is 0, and I'm left with a y. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. 2 minus 1 is 1x. 9 divided by 3 is positive 3, and the x, 1 minus 1 is 0, so that goes away. Okay, number 4, my smallest number is 5. Here's my 3 terms. 5 goes into 25, 5 goes into 30, so 5 is my GCF. And the calculator does work with 3 numbers, so we could test it here. 5, 25, 30, and let's see, it tells me 5, so that works. And then I have x twice, x once, and no x. So I cannot take a letter because this one doesn't have a letter. So my GCF is just 5. So we're going to divide by 5. That leaves me with x squared. 25x divided by 5 is 5x. 30 divided by 5 is 6. There's my answer. Okay, looking at number 5, same concept. We have 2 terms. 3 does go into 6, so 3 is my GCF. I have k squared, m squared, and then km cubed. So they both have a k and they both have an m. So I'm going to take a k and I'm going to take an m. But now we have to figure out how many. So this has 2 k's, this has 1, so I can only take 1. This has 2 m's, this has 3, so I could take 2. Okay, so I'm going to divide by 3km squared. 3's cancel. 2 minus 1, oh, write my GCF, sorry. 2 minus 1 is 1, so I have 1k left, and then 2 minus 2 is 0. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, number 6, this one, I start with my smallest number. There's 3 terms. 4 goes into 8, but 4 does not go into 10. 4 is not a factor of 10. So if we get confused or we can't figure it out, we can come here and we can type 8, 10, 4. And so my GCF is 2. However, I still have to figure out my letters. So I have CW, XZW, XZW. Well, I can't take an X because this one doesn't have it. Okay, but I can take a Z and a W from everything, but I have to figure out how many. So this has 2, 1, 1, so I can only take 1 Z. It says 2, 3, 5, so I can take 2 W's. So I'm going to divide by 2ZW squared. Eight. Then we're going to write our GCF first. That's our first factor. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. That x stays because it doesn't cancel. 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X stays. This is 1 minus 1, z cancels. 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay, number 7. Okay, this is another one. I look at 9. 9 doesn't go into 16, doesn't go into 10. So if I'm unsure what my GCF is, we're going to type them in. So we have 10, 16, and 9. So 1 is my GCF, which I'm not even going to take out a 1 because if I divide everything by 1, it doesn't change anything. So you could put a 1, but you do not have to. And now I'm going to look at the letters. So they all, this has FG, G, FG. So I can't take an F because this one doesn't have an F. They all have a G, so I'm going to put G. This one has 2, 1, and 3, so I can only take 1 G. G to the first power. So I'm going to divide everything by G or 1G, either way. Okay, technically you could put the 1, it doesn't change anything. 10 divided by 1 is 10. Okay, F stays. 2 minus 1 is 1G left. 16 divided by 1 is 16. G over G cancels. 9 divided by 1 is 9. F stays. 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, last but not least, 12 is my smallest number. 12 does go into 24 and 36. So if we're not sure though, because it's kind of a bigger GCF, we can always check it. and it works. So 12 is my GCF number. Here I have x squared x, and then I have no letter, so I cannot take out a letter because that last term has no letter. So we're just dividing everything by 12. So put my GCF first. That leaves me with just x squared or 1x squared. 24x divided by 12 is 2x. 36 divided by 12 is 3. And there's my answer. So 9 and 10 are a little different. These are more just dealing with the box. So remember, anytime we're filling in the box, we multiply. To go outside, we're pretty much dividing, but we still think of it as multiplication. So these are kind of like puzzles. Okay, so I have to find this, 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 and this. Well, I know x squared is always x times x. Okay, x times what is 6x? Well, that's 6, and it's going to be positive. Well, here I don't know, but 6 times what gives me 24? Well, that's going to be a positive 4. Positive 4 times positive 6 gives me positive 24. So then x times 4 is positive 4x. Now your factors are what are on the outside. And your product is what comes from the inside. So remember, we have x squared. Combine our diagonals, so 4x plus 6x is 10x plus 24. Okay, so last one, this one's a little harder. Okay, I know that, I'm going to start with a 5 because it's prime. And I know the only thing that multiplies going to be 5 is 1 and 5. So 5 doesn't go into 2, but 5 does go into 10. So a 5 can go here, therefore 1 has to go here. This one has to be negative because that's negative. This one has to be positive because that's positive. Okay, what times 5 gives me 10x? Well, that's going to be 2x. 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. So there's my factors. So I have a factor of 2x minus 1 and 2x plus 5. And then my product from the inside is 4x squared. That's going to give me a positive 8x minus 5. Okay, there we are.